So now I'm going to cover why we should use Pytorch to carry out deep learning. And indeed, you are in this course and you must be, I assume that you are keen to learn Pytorch and implement deep learning models with Pytorch. But here we'll just, before we move on to installing Pytorch on our systems, I think we are just quickly going to go over why we should even consider Pytorch in the first place. Just a second. Yes, so this is Pytorch and this is the logo of Pytorch. Maybe you've encountered this before. Now, Pytorch is a Python machine learning based package, and obviously this is a Python centric course, and by now you must have installed Python and you must be having Python Anaconda, and you must be having the Jupyter notebooks running on your system. And in case you can't get your Jupyter notebooks running, then I suggest you step back and actually get them running first. But it is based on Torch, and Torch is an open source machine learning package, and this uses the power of graphics processing units. And Pytorch is a preferred deep learning research platform, and it has two main features. It has tensor computations like NumPy, and NumPy, as you know, is an important Python package. And in case that's not something you are acquainted with, I'm going to very briefly touch upon that in the coming lectures. But anyway, and it provides GPU acceleration. It allows automatic differentiation for building and training neural networks. And this is a compelling player in the field of deep learning and artificial intelligence because this is a research-first library and it overcomes all the challenges and provides the necessary performance to get the job done. And it doesn't matter what your background is. You could be a researcher, student. Pytorch is an excellent choice, and in fact it can be a very good choice if you haven't explored other deep learning options before this. So Facebook launched Pytorch 1.0 with integrations for Google Cloud, AWS, and so on. The initial release of Pytorch was in October 2016, and before Pytorch was created, there was another framework called Torch, and this is a machine learning framework and it's been around. The connection between Pytorch and this Lua version, because Torch is based on the Lua language, is because many of the developers who maintain the Lua version are the individuals who created Pytorch. And Soumit Chintala is credited with bootstrapping the Pytorch project, and his reason for creating Pytorch is simple. So basically, because Lua version is aging and Pytorch is the Python version of Torch, and essentially in order to use Pytorch you don't have to learn the Lua programming language and you're good to use Python. Now Pytorch's development is basically, well, this is the philosophy: cater to the impatient, linear code flow, be completely compatible with Python, and that's very important. And it's also a great tool for understanding deep learning and neural networks. Now, there are many existing Python libraries which have the potential to change how deep learning and artificial intelligence are performed, and this is one such library. And one of the key reasons what makes it so special is that it's completely Pythonic and you can build your neural network models quite effortlessly. And sometimes if you're not interested in tweaking the parameters and things like that, sometimes that's exactly what you need. It offers the use of API and it is very simple to operate and run like Python. It's Pythonic and it integrates very well with the Python data science stack. And remember, as we go further on in this course, you'll realize that in order to carry out even deep learning applications, they'll need us to interact with other Python packages like NumPy, I mentioned that before, and so on. And it provides computational graphics, and it offers dynamic computational graphics, and you can change them during runtime, and this is something we'll explore later on. But essentially, these are the key highlights of Pytorch, and these are the packages. Torch, this is the top level Pytorch package, and the tensor library, Torch Autograd. This supports all the differentiable tensor operations, Torch Utils, and Torch Vision. And Torch Vision, we are going to work with that a lot, which provides access to popular data sets, model architectures, and image transformation for computer vision. And initially, we'll find ourselves working a lot with this just to get our hands dirty. The Pytorch community is growing, and more people are bringing Pytorch within their artificial intelligence research labs. So if you master Pytorch, I think you're going to find a lot of community support. And these are some of the reasons why you should consider Pytorch over and above other libraries. The computational graphs, imperative style, backend support, Python approach. I think that really works for me, and highly extensible. It avoids, and anyway, we've spoken about dynamic computational graphs, and just very briefly, what they do is that they avoid static graphs, which are used in things like TensorFlow. And if you have taken my previous courses related to TensorFlow, you know that TensorFlow and its graphs are quite painful. And with the dynamic nature, the developers and researchers are free to change how the network behaves on the fly. So I think that's really very, very powerful, and certainly more flexible than TensorFlow. Different backend support. So it has backends for CPU, GPU, and other functional features rather than just having simple backend. So it uses the Tensor backend for CPU and THC for GPU, and so on. So if you just have a CPU, as I do and a lot of you do, then yes, we are good to use the CPU version without getting entangled with the other modalities. And it is specially designed to be intuitive, easy to use, and it allows you to perform real-time tracking of how your neural network models are working. So that's a very good and a very non-mathematical way of getting a handle on neural networks and their architecture. It is highly extensible because it's integrated with the C++ code, and it shares the C++ backend along with the deep learning Torch. It has a Python approach. So it has a native Python. It is a native Python package by design. So you are not going to struggle an awful lot with the installation further on, and its functionalities are built on Python classes. So it's going to integrate with things like NumPy and so on. Some of the applications involve Python's Pyro probabilistic programming language software is built on it, and Pytorch is not limited to specific applications, and it has been used heavily by Facebook, Twitter, and NVIDIA, and it has been used in a number of research domains. We may not touch upon all of them, but they include NLP, natural language programming, machine translation, image recognition, and so on. And essentially, there are 741 contributors on the official GitHub repository, which makes it, as I said, it's quite a dynamic and a happening community. Thank you. And just to let you know that in this course, I'm mainly going to focus on the CPU implementation of Pytorch, and I think that's good for all intents and purposes. But in case you need to work with a GPU, then you can consider using Google Colaboratory environment, and that's an online Python-driven workspace. And further on in this section, I'll just teach you how to get started with Colaboratory, and if you don't want to buy the GPU and things like that, then Google Colaboratory can certainly be explored.